The shift that happens after spiritual awakening. When someone goes through a spiritual awakening, everything inside them changes. The way they think, the way they feel, the way they connect, the way they love, it all transforms. Before awakening, relationships might have been built on attraction, emotional comfort, or the need to feel wanted. But after awakening, the soul begins to crave something far beyond physical chemistry or emotional dependency. It seeks alignment, it seeks truth, it seeks connection that touches the spirit, not just the mind or the body. This shift is one of the main reasons spiritually awake people struggle to find love. They are no longer satisfied with the kind of relationships that once felt exciting. Superficial attraction no longer pulls them. Temporary connections feel empty. They can no longer tolerate people who drain them, confuse them, or operate from emotional wounds. They have awakened to a higher level of consciousness, and because of that, they begin to see love through a much deeper lens. Once a person becomes spiritually awake, their intuition becomes sharper. They feel energy more intensely. They sense dishonesty instantly. They can tell when someone's intentions are unclear, when someone's heart is closed, or when someone is operating from ego instead of soul. This makes it very difficult for them to stay in relationships that lack authenticity. They simply cannot pretend. They cannot force themselves to feel something that is not aligned. Their soul rejects anything that does not resonate with truth. Another major shift that occurs is the rise in personal standards. After awakening, standards do not rise from ego or pride, they rise from self-respect. Spiritually awake people learn their worth. They learn the difference between attachment and love. They recognize how damaging toxic relationships can be. They understand how draining emotional imbalance is, and because of that, they no longer settle for relationships that disturb their peace or hinder their growth. This naturally reduces the number of people who feel compatible. Most people are still operating in unconscious patterns: fear, emotional insecurity, unhealed trauma, or codependency. So when an awakened person enters the dating world, they quickly notice the misalignment. Conversations that once seemed normal now feel shallow. Behaviors that used to be tolerated now feel unacceptable. The awakened soul begins to crave emotional intelligence, spiritual compatibility, deep communication, and genuine presence. Another challenge is that awakened individuals often outgrow their old environments, old belief systems, and even old versions of themselves. They start living with a greater sense of purpose. They value solitude, self-discovery, meditation, healing, and peace. They move differently, they think differently, they attract differently. And because of this evolution, they suddenly feel disconnected from people who have not gone through the same transformation. This creates a feeling of spiritual loneliness, not because they are unloved, but because they are unmatched. When you become awake in a world where most people are still spiritually asleep, it becomes harder to find someone who understands you at the depth your soul requires. Spiritually awakened, people can't find love easily because they're no longer searching for ordinary love. They're searching for soul love. They're searching for real connection. They're searching for the kind of bond that grows with their spirit, not one that pulls them backward. And until they meet someone who aligns with that energy, they remain alone. Not because they want to be, but because their soul refuses to settle for anything less than what it truly deserves. The disconnect between energies and intentions. One of the deepest reasons spiritually awakened people struggle to find love is the vast disconnect between their intentions and the intentions of the people they meet. When someone becomes spiritually awake, their heart and their purpose shift dramatically. They begin to desire love that is honest, transparent, emotionally mature, and spiritually aligned. They want a love that feels safe, steady, and conscious. But most people are still operating from emotional wounds, unhealed patterns, and ego-driven desires. This difference creates a gap so wide that it becomes almost impossible to bridge. Spiritually awake individuals approach relationships with presence and depth. They listen beyond the words spoken. They observe energy more than behavior. They want to understand the soul behind the personality. They crave a connection where the truth is valued more than superficial harmony. They want emotional honesty, even when the truth is uncomfortable. They want communication that is real, not manipulative. They want partners who reflect, not deflect. They want individuals who take responsibility for their growth instead of blaming others for their pain. But when they meet people who have not reached this level of awareness, the contrast becomes clear very quickly. Many people are still driven by temporary desires. They want attention, not commitment. They want emotional comfort, not emotional growth. They want validation, not vulnerability. They want the idea of love, but not the work required to maintain it. Awakened individuals see this instantly, and it creates a distancing effect. Energy mismatches become painfully obvious. A spiritually awake person can feel when someone is hiding their true intentions. They sense when someone is emotionally unavailable. They pick up on insecurity, jealousy, ego-driven behavior, and unresolved trauma. They can tell when someone's love is conditional or inconsistent. Their sensitivity is both a gift and a barrier. It protects them from unhealthy relationships, but it also makes it harder to find someone who can meet them at the same level of emotional truth. Another challenge is that awakened people no longer chase potential. Before awakening, they might have been willing to fix, heal, or guide someone. But after awakening, they realize that this pattern drains their energy. They no longer want to build a relationship around someone's wounds. They want reciprocity, not one-sided effort. They want a partner who is already working on themselves, not someone who expects them to be the healer. Because of this, spiritually awakened people walk away quicker. They do not stay in situations that feel confusing or inconsistent. They do not tolerate mixed signals. They do not ignore red flags. They are not afraid of losing someone, because they know that losing themselves would be far worse. This strong sense of self-protection often gets misunderstood as coldness or emotional distance, but in reality, it is spiritual clarity. Spiritually awakened individuals also become deeply selective with their time and energy. They no longer give pieces of themselves to people who drain them. They value energetic balance. They want a partner who supports their growth, not someone who hinders it. They want someone who communicates clearly, loves gently, and lives consciously. They want a relationship where both souls elevate each other. This makes the search for love harder, but also more meaningful. Because awakened people are not looking for the many. They are waiting for the rare. They are waiting for someone whose energy feels like home, whose intentions align with their own, and whose soul speaks the same spiritual language. The emotional standards of spiritually awake people. Spiritually awake people don't just raise their consciousness, they raise their emotional standards, their expectations, and their definition of what real love actually means. And once those standards rise, the old ways of relating no longer work. This is one of the biggest reasons why many awakened souls feel like they can't find love anymore. It's not because love has disappeared from the world. It's because shallow connections can no longer satisfy a deep soul. When someone goes through spiritual awakening, they become radically honest with themselves. They start to see what they truly want in a partner, not what society told them to want, not what their family pressured them to accept, and not what their loneliness tried to convince them to choose. They begin to crave something meaningful, something real, raw, healing, and aligned. When you reach this stage, you can no longer tolerate half-love, mixed signals, inconsistent effort, or relationships built on ego instead of authenticity. Before awakening, you may have been okay with someone who only gave you attention instead of real connection. You may have settled for someone who pretended to care instead of someone who actually understood your soul. But after awakening, your heart won't allow you to settle for anything less than truth. You want a partner who listens, not just to your words, but to the silence between them. You want someone who communicates, who shows effort, who meets you with maturity, who apologizes when wrong, who grows with you instead of fighting against your evolution. Because your emotional standards have risen, your tolerance has lowered. You no longer stay in situations that drain you, disrespect you, or downgrade your energy. You walk away faster, not because you are cold, but because you are finally wise. You now choose peace over chaos, alignment over attachment, and sincerity over superficial affection. Spiritually awake people also become more emotionally aware. They recognize red flags instantly: manipulation, avoidance, emotional immaturity, inconsistency, ego-driven behavior. Before awakening, you may have ignored these signs, but now you see everything clearly. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend the energy feels right when it doesn't. You can't force a connection that your soul rejects. Another reason love feels harder is that spiritually awake people don't chase. They attract. They don't beg for attention. They don't compete for someone's love. They don't try to prove their worth. Their self-esteem is rooted in something deeper than compliments or validation. And in a world where many relationships are built on emotional dependency and insecurity, someone who stands in their power can feel intimidating. Most people want love, but not everyone wants growth. And awakened relationships require growth. They require emotional responsibility, accountability, honesty, inner work, and healing. Many people simply aren't ready for that level of depth. They want the benefits of love without the responsibilities of love. So spiritually awake people often feel like they're searching for something rare, something almost impossible to find. But the truth is, you're not looking for something rare. You're just unwilling to accept something ordinary. And that is your strength, not your weakness. How spiritually awake people can still find real love. Even though spiritually awakened people struggle to find love, it does not mean love is impossible. In fact, awakened love, when it finally arrives, is deeper, more meaningful, and more transformative than anything you have ever experienced. The challenge is not that love is gone. The challenge is that awakened souls need a different kind of relationship. To attract that kind of love, you must understand how it actually comes into your life. The first key is alignment. Love for the awakened does not show up in chaos. It does not appear in the middle of emotional confusion. It does not grow where there is insecurity, fear, or self-abandonment. Spiritually awake people attract love when they stand in their authenticity, when they speak their truth, set their boundaries, honor their energy, and refuse to shrink themselves just to be chosen. The right partner for you is the one who is drawn to the most honest version of you, not the version you had to pretend to be. The second key is healing. Awakened souls often carry deep wounds, past betrayals, childhood trauma, emotional scars, abandonment issues, and memories of relationships where they were misunderstood, misjudged, or mistreated. Until those wounds are acknowledged and accepted, even the right person may struggle to reach your heart. Healing does not mean becoming perfect, it means becoming aware. It means understanding your triggers, knowing your patterns, and learning how to love without projecting yesterday's pain onto tomorrow's possibilities. The third key is patience. Spiritually awakened individuals do not experience love on the same timeline as everyone else. Your journey is different. You are not meant to rush into relationships just to avoid loneliness. You are not meant to compromise your standards just because everyone around you is settling. When your soul is growing, your love life moves slower, but it moves with purpose. You are being prepared for a connection that matches your evolution, not your old wounds. The fourth key is energy. Love is not something you chase, it is something you become aligned with. When your energy is heavy with fear, desperation, or emotional hunger, you attract people who feed off that weakness. But when your energy is grounded, peaceful, and self-sufficient, you attract people who match your emotional stability. High-frequency love requires a high-frequency heart. The more you elevate your vibrations, through gratitude, self-awareness, inner peace, and purpose, the more you draw in relationships that are healthy and aligned. The fifth key is letting go. Letting go of the past, letting go of people who drained you, letting go of the idea that love should hurt, letting go of timelines, and letting go of the pressure society puts on relationships. Love flows into the lives of awakened people when they stop trying to control it. When you trust the process, You move from desperate searching to calm receiving. You no longer force connections. You no longer cling to people who are not meant for your journey. You no longer chase after love. You allow it to arrive when it's meant to. Spiritually awakened, people are not unlucky in love. They are selective. They are not unlovable. They simply refuse to accept a relationship without depth, truth, and growth. And that is exactly why, when real love finally finds them, it is powerful, it is peaceful, it is healing, it is transforming. It is the kind of love that feels like home. Your journey might take longer, but the love you are meant for will be worth every moment of waiting.